On the morning my groom vanished, the sun woke before I did. I remember the way the light moved across the woven mat beside my bed, like a small lake had slipped through the window and lay shining in our room. Palm fronds outside trembled with a breeze that smelled of clean clay and early smoke from cooking fires. Someone in the yard had already begun to pound millet, and the steady rhythm joined the birds that stitched a delicate music across the sky. I rose and touched the beaded shawl my mother had made for me, strand by strand. The beads were the color of river stones after rain. I set it over my shoulders, then I reached for the little leather pouch on my table. In it lay the bracelet I had strung the night before for Tayo, a circle of blue trade beads my father once kept in a gourd. I had chosen one bead for every wish: joy, wisdom, patience, health, courage. 2 beads for laughter. 3 beads for truth. When I held the bracelet up, the morning light passed through the blue glass as if it held sky. "My child," my mother said from the doorway, her voice soft and sure. "Eat a little." She carried a bowl of porridge touched with honey. Her smile was bright and calm. "Today is long. The body must not faint while the heart is dancing." I ate a few spoonfuls. My stomach felt like a drum stretched a bit too tight, but the honey soothed me. I could hear children already calling in the lane, a rooster insisting on being heard even though the sun had proved itself. I let my hands rest over the bracelet. "I hope he likes it," I said. "He will," she said. "He likes you." A simple answer, and it steadied me. I put the bracelet in the pouch and set it in my woven bag. The bag itself was new, dyed with onion skins and indigo, the pattern like waves. I slipped it over my arm and followed my mother out to the yard. The compound was full. Aunties in wrapped skirts and bright headscarves moved like flowers in a friendly wind. Uncles sat on the benches under the mango tree and practiced the jokes they would tell later. I could see the sparkle in their eyes. My cousin Layla ran up to me, her cheeks shining. "Amara, can I carry your bag?" she asked, as if the bag were not already on my arm. "Walk with me," I said. Layla took my hand. The drummer boys stood near the gate, palming their instruments in greeting. "Later," one of them said, tapping his breast. "We will call your new name to the sky," I smiled. I looked for my grandmother and found her by the water jar. Her gray braids were tucked into a soft scarf, and her hands were folded around her walking stick. She did not lean on it. She held it like a companion. "Grandmother," I said, "the day has come." "Yes," she said, and looked at my face with eyes that had learned the patience of rivers. "Walk slowly. When happiness runs too fast, it can trip." She touched my cheek with 2 fingers, then the beaded shawl. "Your stitches are neat." "I made Tayo a bracelet," I said, almost shy with my own words. "Then let him wear your wishes," she said. "And remember, when a knot resists, patient fingers find the way." I held her words and kept them close. Not as a lesson, but as a smooth stone in my pocket. We walked toward the big sycamore at the center of the village. Under it, the ground had been swept clean, a circle defined with small stones and flowers. The family of the drummer had hung a cloth between 2 poles to make a shade. A table waited with calabashes of palm wine and bowls of cola. The old brass bell, the one used to mark council and celebration, rested by the tree roots as if it had grown there. People began to arrive from the lanes and from the footpaths that led in from farms beyond. Traders closed their baskets and came, friends in work shirts and church dresses, farmers in their good sandals, students home from the town. Everywhere I looked, I saw kindness. Hands reached to squeeze my arm, to offer blessings pressed into words like ground nuts into paste. "Your father would be happy," someone said, and I felt a warm grief, like a candle that does not burn, but makes glow. The time set for the ceremony was when the sun reached the first branch of the sycamore. It was a good measure. The tree had seen so much of our days that it understood our hours. Tayo was to arrive from the lane near the potter's yard, with his mother, his uncle, and a small procession behind them. He would stand beside me, and together we would share the cola and pour a measure of palm wine for our ancestors. The old bell would speak. Then we would be husband and wife. The drummer boys stood ready. The women in the choir hummed a tune of welcome, sweet and serious. I felt my heart slow to match the hum. I stood. I waited. The sun touched the first branch. I watched the lane by the potter's yard. The sun climbed another finger up the bark. I smiled uncertainly and looked at my mother. She gave me a small nod. "Sometimes the sandals argue with the feet," she said gently, meaning delays always find a reason. "We are patient," the drummer boys waited. The hum continued. I pressed the pouch with the bracelet against my side, and I turned my face to the lane. We kept waiting. When a path grows quiet, people fill it with words. Little whispers began to move among us like moths. Perhaps the uncle stopped to greet someone. Perhaps the shoelace broke. Perhaps they were tying the cloth around the cola bowl again because it had come loose. I accepted every simple answer. But then my cousin Layla ran to me. "I will go to the potter's yard and look," she whispered, and before I could reply, she was gone. Her narrow shoulders square as she headed to help. I stood, my smile steady now because the eyes of the community were on me. I placed my palm on the beaded shawl. The beads were warm from my skin. I let my breathing spread to fill me, like pouring a calm drink into a cup and watching it rise without fear of spilling. "He will be here," I told myself. "Do not borrow worry." Minutes moved like goats that stopped to taste every leaf. Then Layla returned, not running now, but walking fast, her mouth tight. She came to me, careful to keep her voice low. "He left the yard," she said. "Tayo's mother said he stepped out to greet someone near the gate. He did not return." "Who?" I asked. She did not see. She was tying the sash on her dress. The uncle was looking for the bell rope. No one saw. I felt the ground tilt, but only a little. Not enough to fall? A child's laughter burst somewhere, and it steadied me again. I looked toward the lane. In the shade under the big tree, my grandmother shifted her stick as if to say, "The path may be long. Take water." "I will go and find him," I said to my mother. "Let the people rest. Let them eat. I will bring him back." "You should not go alone," she said. "I will walk where the sun can see me," I said, and touched her hand. "Do not worry. It is our day. It will be our day." I slipped the pouch with the bracelet into my bag and stepped away from the circle of shade. The drummers watched me, their hands quiet. The women in the choir let the hum soften to silence like a small bird folding its wings. The world did not stop. It simply waited with me as I began to move. The lane by the potter's yard smelled of wet clay and wood smoke. Bisi the potter stood by her kiln, her hands dusty, her face clean. "Amara?" she asked. "Is everything well?" "Did you see Tayo?" I asked. "He came this way?" She frowned, thinking, her eyes moving as if reading a page in the air. "I saw him," she said. "He was with a man in a white shirt, tall, with a red sash." They spoke softly. They moved toward the old fig tree near the well. It was quick, like a bird landing and lifting off. I did not think of it again. "Did Tayo greet you?" I asked, because the way a greeting sits on a tongue tells you whether a heart is calm. "He lifted his hand," she said. "He always greets well." But his eyes were not on me. They were on the man. "Thank you," I said. I moved toward the well. It was a place of much laughter and many secrets. The fig branches made a roof over the stone mouth of the well, and children loved to play there, their voices lifting up to the leaves. Today, only 2 toddlers sat on the ground, tapping stones together and enjoying their private music. An old woman drew water, her back straight, her movements slow. I greeted her and asked. She had seen nothing. I circled the fig tree. That was when I saw the first bead. It lay between 2 roots, a blue bead with a white eye at its center. It looked up at me like a watcher who had fallen asleep and only now had woken. I knew that bead. I had strung it the night before. I knelt. My fingers touched it. The glass was still warm from the sun. I closed my hand around it and felt my heart take a step forward. Another bead lay near a stone a few paces away, half hidden under a frill of grass. I picked it up. It was lighter blue, smooth as a river-smoothed pebble. I raised my eyes and looked beyond the well toward the narrow path that led out past the old schoolhouse. I did not run. I walked, and with each step I looked down and ahead. as if learning a new script written on the ground. The earth on this path was firm, fine dust pressed by many feet. A man's sandal had scuffed it not long ago. Near the school fence, at the base of a post, another bead waited, caught in a spider's silk, the filament bending under the small weight. "Tayo?" I said, my mouth only shaping the sound, not calling it. My body heard the answer that was silence, and yet I felt a kind of reply, as if his nearness had pulled me onto this thin blue line as a magnet draws iron. At the schoolhouse, a boy named Sammy stood with a stick, drawing shapes in the dirt. He looked up. His face was open as sky. "Sister Amara," he said. "Should I draw your wedding name?" "Later," I said, and smiled as best I could. "Did you see our Tayo go by? Maybe with someone in a white shirt?" He nodded, very sure of what he had seen. "A tall man," he said, lifting his hand above his head. He spoke to Tayo by the fence. Tayo looked like when our teacher asks a hard question. He did not look angry. He looked not knowing. They walked fast. A bead fell. I picked it, but I did not know if it was lost or if he was making a sign. He reached into his pocket and gave me a bead I recognized, blue, with a small crack like a smile. "Thank you," I said, and touched his head. "Today you have sharp eyes. Keep them kind," he beamed. I put the bead in my pouch and continued. At the end of the schoolyard, the narrow footpath opened to the road that led through the small fields and out to the river flats. I had walked here with Tayo many times. We had counted egrets standing like old men in the water. We had carried baskets of cassava leaves and talked of how we would plant our plot at the edge where soil stayed damp, even when the rain was late. I breathed, and dust and green leaf scent filled me. The road turned, and there I saw where a bead had landed in a footprint, blue against the dusty oval like a bit of evening fallen into a day. I picked it up. I lifted my eyes to the bend. The world felt like a room where someone had just stepped out. Not empty, but not here. The wind carried the far-off thump of a drum, perhaps someone practicing for my wedding. It made my ribs answer softly. I felt tears prick my eyes, but they did not fall. "Not here, not yet. Tears need a place to land where they can plant seeds. I would give them a good place later." Past the bend, the path slit in two. To the left, it led toward the bigger road. To the right, it curved toward the old kiln and the clay pits beyond. I paused. A bead lay near the right-hand path, shining as if it had learned how to gather light. "Right," I said aloud. "We go right." It felt like agreeing with a friend. As I walked, people greeted me, and I greeted them back. I did not hide my search. Hiding would have made the search thin and secret, and I needed it wide and shared. A watchful shopkeeper named Kura stepped out from his doorway and leaned on his doorframe. His shirt was clean. His eyes did not meet mine. He offered me water from a small bottle. I did not take it. My mouth was steady. "Have you seen Tayo?" I asked with quiet care. He shook his head in a way that looked like a nod that had lost its courage. "No," he said. Then, as if to fill the space, he added, "But the road is full of stories. Be careful which you bend to hear." "I am listening only to the true one," I said. "It is written in blue and dust." Then I walked on. I did not look back, but I felt his eyes follow me like a lazy fly. I passed the place where the road dipped, and the sweet smell of fermenting palm fruits made me think of old breakfasts and new feasts. The air warmed. A bead lay under a thorn bush, and I had to kneel and reach carefully. The thorn pricked my wrist, a tiny bright point of pain. I sucked in breath and let it out slow. The bead, once in my fingers, felt like a promise. A woman named Sade came toward me with a basket balanced on her head. She looked at my dress, at the beaded shawl, then into my eyes. She did not ask the ordinary question, "How was the day?" She asked the deeper one, "Where is your heart?" "Walking," I said. "Have your feet seen Tayo's?" "They have," she said, not surprised. He was with two men now, one tall, as you were told, one shorter with a soft hat. They were kind to him at first, like friends, then too quick. The shorter one put his hand on Tayo's elbow. I did not like it. She stopped and set down her basket in the dust and knelt to adjust the cloth. Their path turned by the old kiln. Thank you, I said. Did you see beads? She frowned, amused a little as if I asked if she had seen butterflies. I did, she said, but I thought they belonged to a child who had run ahead. They are mine, I said gently. They are telling me a story. Sade nodded. Then read it, she said. But do not read alone. She lifted her basket, balanced it, and went her way. I reached the kiln. It had been built by Bissy's father, a domed oven of mud and brick, darkened by fire, faithful and old. A little patch of shade on one side smelled of baked earth and damp clay. Near the entrance, a blue bead rested in a small cup it had made in the dust. I picked it up and turned. Two men I recognized, brothers Musa and Hamid, were stacking kindling nearby. Amara, Musa said, surprised to see me there in my wedding cloth. Sister, is the day still young? It is still ours, I said. Did you see Tayo pass? Hamid nodded, his mouth thinning with thought. He passed, he said. He did not greet. That is not like him. Was there fear? Not fear, Musa said slowly. But he was doing a sum in his head and did not like the numbers. The men with him, Hamid added. One wore a soft hat. He looked toward the river as they walked, like a man who has planted a trap there and wonders if the bait is still sweet. Thank you, I said, my heart holding to steady. If you hear anyone wondering where I am, tell them the path I took. Tell them I will return with truth. Truth walks slower than lies, Musa said, but it does not tire. He gave me a short nod. Like the nod one gives a person carrying a bowl that must not spill, the path beyond the kiln narrowed. It slipped between low bushes and the clay pits where the earth dipped, and shallow pools held sky. Dragonflies wrote messages over them in swift lines. A line of ants carried their burdens in serious silence. The blue beads, when they fell, chose good places where I could find them, on the lip of a pool, near a stone, beside a tuft of pale grass. I began to feel the kindness of whoever had dropped them. If Tayo had done it himself, he had done it with care, in little moments stolen from bigger moments, like whispering back to someone while another person speaks in your ear. If the bracelet had broken and beads were falling without his choice, then luck had a gentle face today. The path bent toward a small grove of she trees. Their leaves held a darker green, and their trunks shone with light like polished bone. In their shade, the air cooled. I stopped and let my eyes adjust to the softer light. The coolness touched my skin like a blessing. A bead lay near a root, half covered by an ant's careful work. I brushed it and the ant fell away, indignant but unhurt. I thought of Tayo then, not as the groom who had not arrived, but as the man I had known since we were small enough to run behind the elders and steal their chairs when they stood. He had always loved straight lines, rows of planted yams, the length of a drumbeat measured by the span of a hand. He did not like tricks. He liked clear talk. He would not have left me for a small drama. That belief filled me like water, and I carried it. Beyond the grove, the path met the old river road. The river was still a walk away, but I could smell it now. A wet, leafy scent like cool cloth hung to dry in the shade. I could hear it too, faintly, a low, patient sound. We are close, I said to myself. We are close to something. I was not alone. 3 girls from the weaving house had stopped under a thorn tree and were drinking water. Their cloth wraps were still half on the loom in my mind. They saw me and lowered their voices. I waved a hand to ease them. Friends, I said, you are safe to speak. They told me that 2 men had led Tayo across the ridge and down toward the black rocks where fishermen tie their boats. The tall man had walked ahead. The shorter man had kept a hand near Tayo's back as if offering comfort or warning. One girl had meant to shout to Tayo, but her friend had touched her arm and shaken her head. Not from fear, from sense. Sometimes if you call to a person walking on a narrow ledge, you make the edge narrower. Thank you, I said, and touched their hands. If anyone asks where I am, we will say you are following the beads, the smallest answered, and she smiled as if she liked the image. May your eyes be like the eyes of a bird that sees the ant and the river at once. I laughed softly, grateful that laughter still lived in my chest. I gave each a look full of thanks, then moved on. The ridge looked down over the river flats like a quiet uncle who has stories but will not share them all at once. I walked along it, feeling the small crumble of earth under my sandals. Purple flowers dotted the ground, low and surprised-looking. The sky had climbed to noon's gate. My throat felt dry, and I took a sip from the small bottle at my side. A bead rested on a flat stone, placed so carefully I could only think a generous hand had set it for me. I touched it and felt the warmth of the stone. Down below, the river made its steady song. The black rocks had earned their color from time and water. Men sat on them some mornings, mending nets, telling stories that had found new endings by the time the thread came round again. Today they were empty. No boats were tied there now. But as I descended the path, I saw footprints in the sand. 3 pairs. One very distinct, the tall man's long stride. One lighter than I expected. The shorter man had the habit of walking on the outside edge of his feet. The third, Tayo's, was a line of smaller, firm circles. They had walked to the rocks. They had not entered the water there. The sand kept its story neatly. I stood on the rocks and listened. The water slapped and drew back, not hurried, not slow. Dragonflies stitched blue fire over it, the reeds at the bank whispered. I turned my head and looked down the curve of the river. A bead shone near a reed, blue against green, as if a small piece of sky had fallen into the grass and decided to stay. I stepped carefully, collected it, and looked up again. There was a path few people used, one that ran close beside the river and curved under a low overhang of rock where the bank had eroded. Children liked to pretend there were caves where crocodiles told stories to each other. I had never gone far along that path. Now I did. The overhang made a cool shade. The air was damp against my cheeks. Sounds changed here. The river's voice was louder, and my own footsteps sounded private. I followed the curve. Shadows of reeds painted thin stripes across my path. I looked down, and my breath caught. A bead lay there, but not alone. Beside it, a small scrap of cloth, white, clean as if torn from something new. I picked up the cloth and turned it. Along one edge there was a faint line of red thread, just one thread like a horizon. I thought of the tall man in a white shirt with a red sash. I put the cloth into my bag. I curled my hand around the bead until its shape pressed my palm. Then I moved on. The path led to a narrow shelf where the rock climbed above my head and the river pressed with more force below. The shelf narrowed, then widened again near a jutting rock that looked like a watchman. As I stepped toward it, I heard voices. Not loud ones, not shouts. The voices were like 2 men who did not want the wind to repeat them. I stopped, my body still, my breath thin as a thread. I crouched behind the watchman rock and listened. A man said, "He will come." Another said, "Even if he does not, we have enough to tell the mother what she does not want to hear." A third voice rose then, familiar and steady. "Tayo," he said, "I will not run from truth." Warmth spread through me and became courage. I did not rush forward. I did not cry out. I looked down. At my toes, half in shadow, a bead waited. I lifted it. I slipped my hand into my bag and touched the pouch. The bracelet had not simply broken. It had been used as a letter. I shifted, careful, and peered beyond the rock. The path widened into a small clearing in the shadow of the overhang. 2 men stood there with Tayo, the tall one, white shirt, red sash. The shorter one, soft hat. They were not holding him. Their hands were empty, but they stood in a way that made fences around him. Tayo looked tired, but his back was straight. His wedding cloth caught the light under the rock and made its own small dawn. "We can settle it quietly," the tall man said. "You go with us, say what we tell you to say, and the woman will not have to know." "The woman," Tayo said, "has a name." "She will have a new name by this afternoon," the short man said, and his mouth bent as if the signpost in him had been hammered in wrong. "Do not waste too many words on a name that is about to change." "Do not waste words at all," the tall one advised. "Waste is a luxury." I watched Tayo. His face was not afraid. It was not calm either. It was the face of a man who had found his feet on a narrow bridge and had decided to walk forward, not turn back. He looked at the water, then at the men, then beyond them at something I could not see. Then he reached for his wrist. I saw him pinch the air for a moment and then relax. My heart shifted again. He had made the beads fall for me. He had emptied the bracelet for the sake of a trail. Without planning, I eased my bag off my shoulder and set it softly on the rock. I wanted to step forward and say the words that were sitting inside me like birds eager to fly. I am here. But I did not. I thought of my grandmother's hands, patient on a knot. I thought of fairness, and of how truth should not be yanked up like a young plant and waved in the air. It needs good soil to show its roots. So I waited and I watched. A splinter of time passed. The tall man said, "We did not make the debt. We only carry it. What debt?" I asked myself, because my body had asked before my mouth could. Tayo said no debt. False letters. The signature was not mine. Still, the short man said, the person the letter may have harmed wants a face to blame. We have been sent to bring the face. We choose yours. You will not choose for me, Tayo answered. We will go to the council. We will set our feet in the circle and speak before the bell. That is the way for matters not yet clean. The tall man smiled without warmth. Council, he said as if tasting a bitter leaf. You think wisdom is for sale at every corner. He took a step closer to Tayo. We have a path that does not go through old men's hands. Old hands hold torches, Tayo said quietly, and torches show where snakes use shadows to become longer than they are. The short man's mouth bent again. He looked at the tall man, then at the river. Someone will see us, he said. This place is not as empty as it was. We will be seen, Tayo said. That is the point. His eyes lifted and began to scan the ledge as if he felt me. I held my breath, but it rose and fell and made my shoulders move a little. He turned his head and saw me. No surprise crossed his face. Only a small but full thing softened the line of his jaw. He did not speak my name, but he said it through his eyes. Amara. The tall man saw the direction of Tayo's glance. He spun quick. I stood up. I let them see me, but I did not come closer yet. I looked at each. The tall man's eyes were dark and restless. The short man's were small and watchful. Neither had the steadiness of a field that has been well watered. I did not speak fast. I let silence make a small floor for us to stand on. My groom has not run, I said, and my voice did not shake. I followed the beads. They do not fall without reason. I have come to stand where truth is standing. You may say what you brought to say. I looked at the tall one. But you will say it again in the circle, before witnesses. The tall man stared at me as if the sun had moved, but the shadow had refused to follow. Who are you to command the path? He asked. I am the woman with a name, I said, and let my mouth soften with gentleness. And I am the one who will go with Tayo to the council. We will not be taken by whispers. We will be led by words that do not hide. The short man's eyes flicked to the tall one, measuring. He was a man who counted wins and wondered which direction would be less work. He licked his lips, and his tongue came back without any courage on it. We can still, he began. From behind us, a voice spoke, strong and known to both wind and earth. We can still what? It asked, carrying something like a bell inside it. I turned. On the path behind me stood Elder Musa, his shoes dusty, his wrapper neat, a small group of men and women behind him. My mother was there. Bisi the potter. Sade with her basket empty now. The drummer boy. Even Sammy, with serious eyes, holding his stick without poking the ground. My grandmother had come not with her stick alone, but with her calm that made a space inside every moment big enough to breathe in. I had not heard them approach, but that did not surprise me. Sometimes community moves like rain at night. It falls while you sleep, and in the morning the roof shines as if it had remembered how to be new. Elder Musa stepped onto the ledge as easily as a man steps into his own yard. He took in the scene with the practice of years. He looked at Tayo, then at the tall man, then at the short one. He looked at me and held my gaze for one heartbeat. In that look, I found a bench and sat upon it with my spirit. The bell waited, Elder Musa said, as if remarking on the weather. We waited by it. Now we are here. He set his staff against the rock. His hands were empty. Speak. The tall man licked his lips. His swagger had flinched when the elder spoke, but he lifted his head and said, We carry word from the trader Akandi in the North Quarter. A letter was forged in this man's name. He pointed at Tayo. It promised goods in payment. The goods came. The payment did not. The signature is this man's, we are told. We came private to avoid shame. Private shame grows mold, Elder Musa said quietly. Truth likes air. He turned to Tayo. Your words. Tayo bowed his head slightly. The letter was not written by me, he said. My hand did not make those letters. My mouth did not speak that deal. Someone used my name. I do not know who. But I will find the root and bring it to the ground. I will not hide. I will not run. Elder Musa turned to the tall and the short men. You did good work to bring a claim to a person's ears, he said, and by his tone he made the words kind but careful. But you chose a path near the water and the shade, not the open road. Why? The tall man answered. We thought to save face. Whose face? Elder Musa asked. Perhaps our own, the short man said. Smaller now. The traders too. The market is hot with rumors. He did not want to feed them more. He did not think, my grandmother said gently. He worried. Thinking would have brought him to the shade of the sycamore, not the shadow of this rock. She leaned on her stick, which was a way of leaning on patience. Then let our feet go there, Elder Musa said, and his voice put down a pathway that reached all the way back to the big tree. He looked at me and Tayo. Walk with us. He looked at the two men. Walk with us. He did not ask. He did not threaten. He offered the only sensible thing. Even the river nodded in its low song. We walked back along the ledge. I kept my eyes open for beads, but the path ahead did not need them now. The people were my trail. My hands felt light. Tayo walked beside me. His fingers brushed my own just once, like the gentle pass of a bird's wing. Not a promise, not a plea. A person saying to another, I am here. On the ridge, the sky had widened. At a bend, Kura the shopkeeper stood where the shade made his doorway a dark square. He watched us pass. His face was closed, the way a market stall shutters when rain comes early. He made as if to greet us, then did not. Elder Musa looked at him, and Kura's hand moved up to rub his neck. He looked like a man who had remembered a thing he once forgot. We came back into the village like a river returning to its old bed. The sycamore waited, generous in its shade. The bell rested by the roots. People moved to make a circle. The drummers set their hands in their laps. The choir women pressed their palms to their skirts. The air felt like a room where all the windows were open. Elder Musa stood in the center. We will call a hearing, he said, not loud, but everyone heard. We will test words and see which ones float and which ones sink. He looked at Tayo, then at me. Do you still wish to be wed today? I looked at Tayo. I looked at the beads in my pouch. I felt the river inside me slow, then lay itself down like a calm animal that trusts your hand. The answer was not for now. It would bloom from what came next. We wish to be seen, I said, my voice clear. And we wish for justice that does not bruise to be done. Elder Musa nodded. Then sit, he said, and motioned to the seats near the front of the circle. Rest your feet. Your mouths will have work. He looked at the two men who had brought the claim. And your mouths too. My mother moved close and touched my shoulder. Water? She asked. Yes, I said, and took the cup she held. It tasted like the way leaves look at dawn. I drank and felt my body remember that it was not only heart, it was also hands and feet, and those needed care. As we waited for the bell to speak, I untied my pouch and looked at the beads I had gathered. One by one they had led me. They were small, but they had carried a large story. I placed them in my palm. They felt smooth and sure like truth when it rests where it belongs. The bell rang. One clear note, then another. People settled. The circle tightened, not by bodies moving in, but by attention. The breeze moved through the leaves. The ground beneath our feet held everything we were and had been, and everything we hoped to be. I folded my shawl closer and rested my hands in my lap. The day we had set aside for vows was now also the day we would set aside for truth. If vows are a path two people promise to walk, then truth is the light we carry so our feet know where to land. I looked at Tayo. He looked at me. I felt fear and calm mix like two streams that find one river. If you were me, would you have followed the beads? If you had not found them, would you still have come to this circle? I do not know. I only know that the beads shone, and I loved the man whose hand had worn them, and that love can be brave without being loud. The bell rang once more. Elder Musa raised his hand. "Let us begin," he said, and we did. The bell's third note faded into the leaves, and Elder Musa stepped to the center of the circle. He lifted his palm, and the quiet deepened. I could hear a child's bracelet tinkling somewhere, a small sound like a bird settling. Dust floated in a thin ribbon of sun that lanced through the sycamore branches. My breath found a rhythm that matched the rustle of the tree. "Here," the elder said, his voice calm and even. "We lay our words where the ground is clean. We will not step on each other's sentences. We will not raise our voices. We will ask and answer, and where a path splits, we will follow each branch until it returns to the trunk. Let no one fear to speak what they know. Let no one adorn the truth like a feast bowl with too many flowers." He nodded to the schoolteacher, a patient man named Femi, who sat with a slate and white chalk. "Right," Elder Musa said gently. "The story must have a faithful ear." Teacher Femi lifted his chalk. A small pile of water-washed stones lay near his foot. He used one to keep his papers from lifting in the breeze. When he wrote, the chalk made a soft sound like footsteps in dry grass. "First," the elder said, turning to the tall man in the white shirt with the red sash. "Your name?" "Aid," the tall man replied, clearing his throat. His voice carried a city polish that scratched a little, like a stiff new shirt. "I work with the trader Akande. And you?" Elder Musa asked the shorter one. "Kunla," he said, his soft hat rolled in his hands now, thumb brushing its brim. "You were sent," the elder said, not accusing, not absolving. "Say what brought you." Aid explained how Akande, who kept a store in the north quarter where the road bent toward the town, had extended goods on credit after receiving a written promise. "A letter in this man's name," he said, nodding toward Tayo. "The goods were palm oil, salt, and cloth. They did not return payment. Akande asked us to bring word because the market is already loud. He said a quiet path is a kind path. The path you chose was by the river and out of sight," my grandmother said, not unkindly, but in a way that set the words straight. "Quiet does not mean hidden." Adi dipped his head. "We thought to avoid shame. Truth owns its own clean cloth," Elder Musa said. He extended a hand. "Show the letter." Aid reached into a leather folder and brought out a folded paper. The paper looked tired. The fold lines were worn soft as fabric. As he handed it to the elder, I saw a faint edge of red thread looped where the paper had once been tied. I remembered the scrap I had found near the river under the overhang. I felt it shift in my bag as if it too heard its name. The elder opened the letter and lifted it so light touched its face. The ink was brown-black, the strokes thick in places, thin in others. The bottom bore a name written clearly, Tayo Okon. Above it, a mark that might have been a flourish or a small tremble. "Pass it arm to arm," the elder said. "Let many eyes see. Let those who know the hand speak." The letter moved clockwise through the circle, palm to palm, a gentle current. When it reached me, I held it very still. The paper had a smell like dried cassava and something else, gum from plant sap, perhaps. Tayo's name on it made my chest tighten. The lines of the letters were heavy, as if the writer had pressed hard, wanting the name to enter the paper so no one could lift it out. Tayo leaned toward me. He did not touch the letter. He looked at it, then at me. "It is not my hand," he said quietly, more to himself than to anyone. Then, louder, steady, "I did not write this." I passed it to my mother. She held it the way one holds a stranger's baby. Careful, respectful with a hint of tautness at the shoulders. She too passed it on. Around the circle it went, and the murmur of careful thought followed in a soft braid. "Teacher," the elder said when the letter returned to his hands. "Does your ledger hold this man's name? Has he written in your books?" Teacher Femi nodded. "Tayo signed when he helped bring the drum for the school last season," he said. "And twice more, once when he witnessed an inventory. He has a neat hand." "Bring the pages," the elder said. Sammy, the boy who had given me a bead, stood as if lifted by a small wind. He sped to the schoolhouse, light sandals, pounding heart, and was back fast, a brown folder against his chest. Teacher Femi opened it and turned with care. He showed his pages to the elder first, then to us. Tayo's name appeared on the paper in lines that looked like water when you pour it from a calabash, steady, smooth, without sudden thick places. The letter stood straight. The cross on the T did not bite into the stem. It rested on it like a friendly bird. "Write again," Elder Musa said, facing Tayo. "Not as a test of memory alone, but so our eyes can be sure." Tayo's jaw flexed. He took the chalk. He bent and wrote his name on a small slate the teacher held out. He wrote it once, then again. He did not hurry. His wrist did not wobble. When he was done, he returned the chalk and met the elder's gaze without pride and without fear. The elder set the slate beside the letter on the low stool in front of him. The two names spoke to each other, and they did not speak the same language. One held itself like a broom, tidy and useful. The other leaned unevenly, as if trying to look like something it was not. "A name is not only its shape," my grandmother said softly, "almost to the earth and not to anyone. It is the way the hand breathes when it writes." "Who delivered the goods?" the elder asked Aid, bringing the talk back to the road it needed. "We did not carry them," Aid replied. "A donkey cart brought them to the tamarind tree behind the market. The person who came to collect gave the name on this letter. He spoke with us briefly. He did not ask for witnesses. He signed a note. He left with the cart." "Describe him," Elder Musa said. "Medium height," Kunli answered. "Wore a cap. He moved like a man who avoids attention. He looked at the ground more than at eyes." "That describes many men at market," Elder Musa said, a hint of dry humor like a leaf shade crossing a warm stone. "Did he carry anything to tell you his work? A trader's bag? A tool?" "Nothing I recall," Aid said. His gaze slid and then returned, as if he wished his memory had decided to become sharper overnight. "Where did the cart go?" the elder asked. "Down the lane behind the shops," Kunli said. "The donkey knows that route, I was told. Many goods pass that way. Whose shops?" Bisi the potter asked. The question came quick, but her tone kept it from being a spear. It was a thread connecting points. Aid turned his head toward the north quarter, then toward the row of small stores that faced the swept square. His eyes settled, not on Kura's shop yet, but near it. "Past the tailor's," he said. "Past the spice cellar," to the corner near the place the road bends. Several heads turned. Mine did too. Kura stood outside his store again, hands folded, one thumb rubbing the web between his fingers where skin meets skin. He saw our eyes, and his face made a smile that had lost its teeth. "You said earlier you had not seen Tayo," I said gently, "not to trap, but to bring our morning's words into the circle's light. Did you see the cart?" Kura stepped forward a little, then stopped, as if his feet had found a ridge in the earth. "Many carts come," he said. "I do not count them all. Market is busy. Sometimes a busy place leaves big footprints," Elder Musa said. "Fetch a conde." A young man ran between the legs of the benches and disappeared into the north quarter. He returned with Akande walking behind him, measured and tidy. Akande's tunic was clean. His face held the calm of a man used to numbers and stock. He carried a small bag made of woven reeds. "Trader," the elder greeted him with a nod. "Your men gave us a letter. They say it is from Tayo. They say goods were delivered. They say payment has not found its way home. Sit with us." Akande sat on a low stool across from the elder. He placed his reed bag on his lap, opened it, and took out a ledger bound with string. He also took out a bottle of ink with a cork in it and a small quill. He handled them with the grace of a person whose hands know their friends. "I did not ask my men to bring this matter to a hidden place," he said, before anyone else could speak. "If they did, that is their weight to carry." I asked only for caution. "I am a trader. Trade walks on trust. When trust stumbles, it spills into every bowl." "Well said," my grandmother murmured. "When the river muddies at the bend, even those who did not step in it must wait for clear water." Akandi laid the ledger open on his knees. He turned to a page marked with a scrap of dried leaf. "Here," he said, tapping the page with one finger. A note of goods extended: 20 small kegs of palm oil, 2 sacks of salt, 6 bolts of plain cloth. A letter in the name of Tayo Okan promised payment after harvest. I believed it. If a man's name is a good rope, others will use it to tie their loads. "The letter," Elder Musa said, lifting it gently. "You tied this packet with red thread?" "It is what I had," Aide said quickly. "I use it to tie receipts. The thread is mine." I reached into my bag and brought out the scrap of white cloth with the single thread of red along its edge. I showed it to the elder, then to Akande. "I found this near the river where your men met my groom," I said. "It fell when they walked or when they stopped." Aide looked at it startled. "It could be from my shirt," he said, touching the red sash at his waist. The thread matched. He felt suddenly smaller, as if the air around him had thinned. "We did not intend harm. We wanted to bring him to words, not to water." "It is good you stand here now," the elder said. "The short path back from a mistake is a wise man's walk." He turned to Akandi again. "Who gave you the letter?" "A messenger," Akandi said. "Not this one." He nodded at Aide. "Another." "Where is he?" He looked around. No one answered his question. He went on. "The letter arrived 2 weeks ago. It came folded, with the name written large on the outside. The messenger said he was asked to carry it and knew nothing else. He did not wait for an answer." "Where did the goods go?" Elder Musa asked again. "Behind the market," Akandi replied. He traced his finger along a line of small notes where he had marked each keg, each sack, each bolt. "The man met our boy at the tamarind tree at dusk. He gave this name." He tapped the ledger again. "He signed a short note to say the goods had found him. Do you have that note?" Teacher Femi asked, leaning slightly forward. Akandi nodded and reached back into his reed bag. He took out a paper that was smaller and more hurried. He unfolded it and held it up. The signature on that page wore Tayo's name too, but now the strokes made it even more like a costume. The end of the name trailed as if the writer had been interrupted. "Pass it," the elder said. The note made its round. When it came to me, I held it next to the letter for a moment. 2 attempts to draw my groom. Both wrong. Both trying. The elder looked toward Cora. "Stand with us," he said. "You are closest to the lane where the cart turned. Your eyes are good. Your doorway sees much." Cora came around the circle. He stood between the elder and the trunk. The sycamore's bark behind him made a kind of clean wall. He put his hands behind his back. He looked at the ground. He did not look at anyone's face. "What did you see?" the elder asked. "I saw carts like every day," Cora said. "I saw children play. I saw women carry cassava. I saw nothing that belongs here." His words were not lies. They were too general. They were like smoke that spread and made everything gray. "Sometimes," Elder Musa said, "when a person is asked to bring a cup of water, he returns with the river. We are thirsty, but a cup is what we need." He paused. "On the day in question, did a donkey cart stop near your back door?" Cora's mouth opened, then closed. He shifted. "A cart stops there most days," he said. "It is a good place to stop." "Who unloaded it?" Bisi asked, her eyes remembering more than her mouth had used that day. "I saw 2 boys go around the corner at dusk. One carried a sack that sagged as if heavy with oil." Cora looked at her, then away. "Boys work for many," he said. "Not only me." And yet, the elder's voice stayed even. "When oil leaks from a pot, the stain knows whose floor it is." Layla, my cousin, raised her hand. The elder nodded to her. "Uncle," she said, using the village name for the elder. "I collected the empty buckets by the water place that evening." I remember a small trail of palm oil where a keg had dripped. The trail curved behind the tailor's shop and ended near Cura's door. I wiped it with sand. I'm sorry. I thought only of clean ground. No blame, the elder said. Clean ground loves you for it. He turned to Cura again. Did you receive goods you did not pay for? No, Cura said. He said it with too much speed, as if speed could make words true. Teacher Femi, whose eyes had held thousands of children's stories and learned to read the ones not written on paper, stood and cleared his throat. With your leave, he asked the elder, may we also ask about the hand that wrote these names? The letter presses hard here. He pointed to the downstrokes. This is not our Tayo's habit. Also, the ink is darker than the ink we use at school. Cura, your shop sells ink sticks that make this same color. A small thing. Perhaps nothing. But small threads weave whole cloth. Cura laughed, small, tight. Many sell ink, he said. This is not my hand either. Ask me to write. I will write. Write then, the elder said kindly. Not to trap, but to gather. Let your hand join the circle. Cura took the chalk. He too wrote his name. His letters leaned a little left. He pressed hard on the last stroke. The teacher placed Cura's writing beside the forgeries and Tayo's true name. 8 or 9 heads leaned in. Murmurs rose, not sharp, but like the first raindrops on leaves. The shape is not the same, someone said, but the weight is like. Another murmured, ashamed even to notice a similarity. What do we learn here? The elder asked. He did not want us to run ahead. We learn only that hands speak their own way, but hands can imitate. If I clap my hands twice near a hen, she will not follow only the sound. She will look to see which hands clapped. This is what we will do. Look, Akande turned a page in his ledger. There is also the mark of the donkey cart driver, he said. He placed a thumbprint because he cannot sign. He carries a small scar by his nail. I can find him. Find him after we take breath, the elder said. For now, we will ask more of the road. Aide stood again, the red sash at his waist dull in the shade. We did not act with a cruel heart, he said. We thought we were doing a quiet thing. We will face the proper path now. The elder inclined his head. It is good when feet admit they have stepped wrong and put themselves on the right ground. Sit. Drink water. A cup moved to Aide's hands. He drank. The small movement, his throat lifting and falling, made him more human to me. We all carried things we wished had gone differently. My mother's hand slid across my back, a warm palm, a reminder I had not eaten much. I took a small piece of cola but did not chew. My mouth was full of the taste of iron and dust, of waiting. The elder lifted the letter again and held it toward the light. The paper, he said, is from a tablet used by the town notary. The edges are trimmed with a little tooth. I have seen this. Cura, did you go to town recently? He asked it like a man asking another when last he saw the moon, unthreatening, as if the answer could be any and still be respected. Cura looked up now, and his eyes were not closed. They were tired. I went, he said. 3 weeks ago. To buy thread and salt. That is my work. I hot-footed to town because my back shelf was empty. Did you also buy paper? Teacher Femi asked. Cura did not answer at once. I had paper, he said finally. I use it to wrap. The elder changed the angle of the moment. Sade, he said, turning to the woman who had told me about the men near the kiln. You walked this morning on the road to the kiln. Your eyes are careful. In your basket you carry many small urgencies. What did you see on the days before the letter came? Sade set her basket down and folded her hands. I saw men in the dusk outside Cura's shop, she said quietly. I did not mention it because dusk is thick with men standing everywhere. But one wore a soft hat like Kunli's. They spoke low. They did not laugh. People who buy salt laugh when they carry it, because they know soup will be better. These men did not laugh. Kunli's face turned toward the ground. I spoke with Cura, he said, his voice so soft we leaned to hear. He asked us the price of oil in town. He made it seem like gossip. I told him. I did not know any more then, the elder nodded. We do not gather rain and pour it on a man's head without thinking, he said. We hold it and ask the sky if more is coming. He looked at Kura again. You see the path our thoughts are walking, Kura swallowed. A muscle jumped in his cheek. You want to lay this on me, he said. Not angry, just very tired, as if he had been asked to hold a child who had grown heavy in his arms. We want to lay this in the open, Elder Musa replied. If it belongs to you, then we will ask you to claim it. If it does not, we will shield you from the dust of suspicion. A proverb says, the road does not steal the footsteps of those who walk it. It gives them back to the village. We are asking the road to give us back the way this went. The elder stood, stretching his back a little. He glanced at the sky, measuring the sun's climb. We will walk, he said. Our legs will listen to our minds. We will go to the tamarind, then to the lane behind the market, then to the doors that open there. We will bring the cart driver if we find him. If the goods are in the wrong house, they will tell on themselves. If they are not, then we will sweep suspicion away as we sweep leaves from the threshold. He looked around. Come, we rose. The circle untied itself and became a line, then a wide ribbon. We moved as one, not in a hurry, but with purpose, carrying our questions like small lamps. The air warmed on my skin. The sycamore's shade fell away, and the road's bright dust met our feet. At the edge of the square, the tamarind tree waited in its own patch of cool. Children had hung a swing from one side with a woven rope. The rope creaked as it moved empty in the slight breeze. Aid walked ahead to show where he had stood. He tapped the ground with his toe. Here, he said. The dirt held only the busy script of many feet. If prints had been written there last week, they were gone now, read to the end and blown away. An old man who liked to sit under the tamarind was there as well. He wore a white cap and had eyes that kept all the years they had seen. Grandfather, the elder greeted him. Did you see a cart here the day before last market? I saw a cart here 3 afternoons ago, the old man said. The donkey wished to bite the leaves. The driver slapped its mouth and said, Eat when work is done. He was not unkind, only firm. A man with a cap came. They spoke under their breath. The cart went that way. He pointed with a slow hand toward the back lanes. Thank you, the elder said. We will leave you shade and take your words. We moved into the narrow lane. The light dimmed between walls of mud brick and the backs of shops made from wood and tin. We passed the tailor's small side door. The smell of starched cloth lifted from a basin. We passed the spice seller's window, high and small, which leaked a scent of pepper and cumin. The lane bent. The ground here held the deep dent of cartwheels. In one place, a stain darkened the dust with the memory of oil. Here, Layla whispered, showing the small shine of sand grains that had stuck together. The elder crouched, touched the stain with a finger, then rubbed his fingers together. Oil, he said. It took its time to sink. At the bend, the lane widened into a small yard shared by 3 shops. The tailor's back step, the spice seller's side shelf where he dried pepper in the sun, and Kura's back door. The door was latched. A pot of basil sat to one side, leaves breathing their cool scent into the warm air. Kura's shoulders squared. He stood before his door as if to hide it, then stepped aside as if he had remembered that our eyes were already there. He untied the latch. Before we enter, the elder said, listen, we do not come like a storm. We come like morning, light first, then heat. If we find what belongs to truth, we will not shout. We will simply name what we see. The door opened. The room inside was shadowed and smelled of things that had traveled: soap, kerosene, dried fish, thread, chalk, ink. My eyes adjusted. A window, high and small, let down a thin stream of light. It cut across shelves that held goods in neat rows. Beyond the main room was another, narrower, where boxes stacked made a wall as if caution had built itself a house and moved in. Akandi stepped just inside and stopped. He did not push forward, though these were, at least in part, the goods he had noted in his ledger. He waited for the elder, and the elder waited for the heir to accept us. Then we moved to the second room. The boxes there wore the marks of many journeys. Some were stamped in purple with a trader's symbol from the town. Some bore words written in a different hand. 3 neat letters for salt, a curved line for cloth. In the corner, an empty keg lay on its side, a gloss of oil still shining inside. Beside it, 5 more kegs stood upright like people who had been told to wait and were obeying with stiff patience. A bolt of plain cloth rested on a shelf, its edge peeking out like a sleeve. A candy's breath left him in a sound I did not often hear from him. It was half relief and half grief. He touched the edge of the cloth and lifted it an inch. His face was careful. His eyes were not. A trader knows his goods the way a mother knows her child's cry, my grandmother said from behind me, so softly I almost thought the room itself had whispered. The elder approached the kegs. He placed his palm against one. It gave a steady answer back. I am full. He did not tip, did not pry. He simply stood and counted quietly with his eyes. 5 here, he said. 1 empty. The ledger said 20 small kegs and days have passed. More may have been sold. He turned. I do not see a receipt. Kura had not moved from the doorway. His chin had dipped. His hands were at his sides. He looked like a boy who had been told to remain still for a picture while a fly walked across his nose. Speak, the elder invited him. Let the air carry your words more easily than your chest is carrying your breath. Kura lifted his head. He did not look at Akande yet. He looked at me first, and then at Tayo. His eyes did not ask for pity. They asked for space. I did not mean to injure, he said, and the thin walls seemed to take a breath with us. I did mean to take. I did not mean to harm. He stopped, shook his head as if his words had run ahead without him, then began again. I asked Kunle the price of oil because my customers were begging. They have been asking for weeks. I had no coin. I had orders. I had promise. I thought... He lifted both hands and then let them fall. I thought if I borrowed the name of a man who would someday be my family, I could fill the shelves, make sales, and repay before the harvest ended. No one would suffer. It would be neat. I wrote the letter. He turned to Tayo then. His face showed how heavy it is when a man decides to carry his own stone all the way to the circle. I wrote your name, he said, speaking slower now, each word placed as if he did not want any to fall and be lost. I sign sometimes for people who cannot sign, and I practiced your letters. I did not mean to stain your day. The room listened. The open lane listened too, and the tamarind tree beyond made a small shade for our attention. My mouth went dry. For a moment, I thought of the beads and the river and the red thread, and then all of that moved into a corner because this was the heart of it. Why not come to me? Tayo asked, his voice even. He was not playing with the words as a knife. He held them flat like bread. Why make a path behind me instead of in front? Kura's face tightened. His eyes sank to their corners. Because the thing I owed was already late, he said. Akande had sent a warning to my door last month. I feared his hand more than I trusted yours. That was my mistake. I feared the wrong thing. Akande did not lift his hand, but a shimmer of hurt passed over his face, like heat over a road. My warnings are words, he said. I do not burn a man's house. I do not shame him in public. I send a boy with a note, I ask. I made you into a big shadow, Kura said softly. The kind that hides even ordinary kindness. That is my second mistake. Elder Musa stood with his hands loose at his sides. He had not judged yet. He was watching the way truth walked and making sure it did not trip on our emotion. You signed the note at the tamarind? He asked. Kura nodded. I wore a cap. I kept my head down. I did not want the old man under the tree to have to choose whether to know me. A soft laugh moved, a sad one. We all knew that feeling, to wish a neighbor's eyes would not read your name at the wrong time. You wrote this letter, the elder said, lifting the paper Tayo had not written. On whose paper? From the notary, Kura said. I bought 3 sheets last time I went to town. Good paper gives weight, I thought. I tied it with red thread my wife bought for cloth. This is the cloth? I lifted the scrap from my bag. I held it in the light. The red thread along its edge shone the same. The small knot at one end had been pulled and tightened by a thumb that left a tiny dark mark. Kura nodded. That is mine. It is good to see someone point to their own footprints, my grandmother murmured. The earth likes that. Ade shifted where he stood. I did not know all this, he said. His voice held relief and something else that could be called shame. I only followed the line I was given to walk. We ask only that you now walk the line your own eyes have seen, the elder said. You and Kunli will speak in your shop of how you choose men to carry words. Perhaps you will change that. But that is your circle to make. He turned back to Kura. Now, he said, and though the word was simple, it made the air cooler, the room wider. We will decide what is fair. Not only for the trader, not only for Tayo, for the village too. Truth that is fair is like a mat woven tight. It does not unravel when someone pulls one strand. We returned to the sycamore. The walk felt different, as if a stone lodged in a shoe had been shaken out. But the shoe still had dust in it. We needed water to wash it clean. The circle formed again. The bell looked ready, but the elder raised a hand and let quiet be the bell. Listen, he said. And then he listened too. He did not fill the space. He allowed everyone to turn their thoughts over and lay them like pieces of cloth on a line in their minds, smoothing them with their palms, seeing where they wrinkled. Akandi spoke first. I want my goods paid for, he said. I also want trust restored. If I break it once, customers will not come. If it breaks around me, those who trade with me will walk somewhere else. I do not want a man's life to fall apart because of a mistake, but I do want the river to find its bed again. Tayo spoke next. My name must be washed clean, he said. Let no one say my hand wrote what it did not. I will stand where people can see me. That is enough for me. I do not want to see Kura broken. But do not tie me to his debt. Kura looked at the ground, then at the elder. His voice this time was not a spill. It was a small stream that had found a channel. I will pay, he said. I will return the goods. I sold some. I will count the coin. I will add for the trouble I caused. But the sum is larger than my hands alone can carry at once. This is where a community is a net and not a stick, my grandmother said in a tone as light as a bird's wing touching water. A fish swims safer in a net that holds it to be measured and then sets it free. A stick bruises and makes the water red. A proverb for the day, someone said. Several heads bowed in agreement. Elder Musa looked around the circle. Who gains if Kura's shop closes? He asked. No one. We all lose. Who gains if a lie sticks to Tayo? No one. We all lose. Who gains if Akandi's goods vanish and his trust falls? No one. We all lose. So we will make the loss a thing we can carry together. The one who tied the wrong knot must do the work of untying it, but hands can help. He lifted his staff, then set it down again. Here is my thought. He paused, letting us lean toward him with our minds. Kura will return all goods still in his store. He will go with Akandi now to count. For the goods already sold, he will pay from his coin. For goods he cannot pay for at once, he will work a fair plan. Each market day, a portion from his profit will go to Akande until the ledger is even. For using another man's name, he will make an apology in the center of the circle so his words can wash what his hand stained. He will also make a quiet gift to the school, a set of slates and chalk, to honor the hand that writes true names. He looked at Tayo. For Tayo, to clean the name that was carried through mud, we will hold up the teacher's ledger and this slate and this letter, and we will say what we saw. We will also tie a cord around the bell's handle with blue thread. He smiled almost and glanced at my shawl. For 3 market days, anyone who wants to ask about this matter will come, and the elder will tell them the story plain. That way, gossip turns into knowledge, and knowledge beats its gong slowly, in the open. A breathy yes moved like grass when wind touches it. I felt tears prick, then dry before they fell. A plan stood before us, not heavy, but firm. It felt like a bridge that had been built across a stream, not with iron and noise, but with logs fitted well and a handrail that did not wobble. Akandi nodded. I agree, he said. He put his hand on his ledger. I will not add interest to the part that waits. Payment without punishment is a fair road when a man has stepped forward so that his shadow does not do the speaking. Kura's chest rose and fell. He put a hand to his face, then let it fall again. I agree, he said. I will apologize not as a performance but as a repair. And I will bring slates and chalk. I used words like tools in the wrong place. I will offer tools in the right place. Aid and Cunley shifted, their faces showing that something inside them had unclenched, like a fist that stops looking for a wall. The elder did not strike the bell yet. He raised a finger. We are not finished, he said. A wrong action rarely walks alone. It has small friends that bring it water. We will look at them now, not to blame more people but to see how to build a better fence. He looked at the two men. You wanted to use a quiet path, he said. Next time, what will you use? Our feet, Aid said, the corners of his mouth pulling into a regretful smile. We will come to the sycamore first. Even if our legs are tired. Good, the elder said. He looked at the old man with the white cap under the tamarind. Grandfather, he called. The old man raised his hand. If you see any cart stop and men speak with their heads bent too close to the ground, you will send a child to call us? I will, the old man nodded. Not because I love trouble, but because I love quiet that is earned, not bought. The elder turned to Teacher Femi. Will you show your charts of handwriting to the older ones who sell in the market? He asked. Not to make them suspicious, but to make them curious. Let them see how a name has manners when it walks on a page. A small lesson in their hands may save a big trouble. I will, the teacher said. I have a way to show children differences. I can change it for grown hands. Even a little knowing can be a lamp. And to all of us, the elder said, letting his gaze sweep the circle. We will remember that borrowing another's name is like borrowing their boat. You may think to cross quickly, but when the river floods, the rope that pulls you back belongs to them. Do not put that strain on a neighbor unless his hand is on the rope with you. He paused, then smiled in the direction of my grandmother. I am talking too much, he said. The day is long. The sun is kind but not endless. We will do one more thing now, then let feet carry bodies where they must. Kura, speak your apology. Not long, not short. True. Kura stood. He moved to the center of the circle. The light found him and stayed on him as if the sun had been waiting. He looked at all of us, then at me, then at Tayo, then at Akande. He did not clear his throat. He did not make a gesture. He simply let his breath go out and come back, and then he said his words on it. I used another man's name because I was afraid, he said. I feared the wrong thing. I feared shame more than wrong. My wrong brought more shame. I tried to fix my empty shelf with a quick hand. My quick hand broke trust. I am sorry to Tayo, whose name I dirtied. I am sorry to Amara, whose day I bent. I am sorry to Akande, whose goods I took without the right path. I am sorry to the village, whose sleep I troubled with whispers. I will repay. I will repair. I will stand in the circle again if I forget. I ask that you watch me not like a hawk watching a chicken, but like a mother watching a child who is learning not to spill. Silence held him there for a heartbeat, then another. It was not a silence that squeezed. It was a silence that let the words land and find good soil. Then a small sound rose, the sound of someone breathing out. It was like a soft rain beginning after a dry spell. Good, Elder Musa said. A broken bowl can be mended if we do not stomp the pieces. Now go and count. When the counting is done, we will tie the blue thread to the bell. He looked at me and at Tayo. And you two? Rest. Drink water. The body also has a voice. The circle loosened again, not into a line this time, but into many small rivers flowing toward home, toward shops, toward the tamarind, toward duty. The choir women lifted a gentle hum. It did not sing of victory. It sang of steadiness. The drummers touched their instruments and made a quiet heartbeat, not to call people to dance, but to remind us that our chests were doing their work inside us without asking for praise. I sat for a moment on the low bench near the bell. My bag rested against my foot. I took out the blue beads I had gathered and let them pool in my palm like the shallow water of a clean dish. I turned them with my finger. A small circle of light jumped from bead to bead. You did not lead me to anger, I whispered to them. You led me to the circle. Tayo came and sat beside me. He did not speak right away. We watched a small ant struggle with a crumb on the ground, then solve it by cutting the crumb and calling 3 friends to help. A proverb, he said finally, so quiet only my shoulder heard him, says, "When the broom is tied, its straws move together. We saw that today." "We did," I said. "I am thankful." I paused, then let the question that had sat inside me rise and put its face in the light. "Are you angry with Kura?" "Yes," he said, honest as rain. "But not with heat, with the kind of anger that holds a stick and beats the drum until others hear it and come to help the dance be right." He looked at my hands. "The beads led you well." "They were your message," I said, and I touched his wrist. The bracelet space there looked naked. "You emptied them to write a path." "I did," he said. He looked across the square to where children chased a hoop and stumbled, then rose laughing. "I do not like being pulled like a goat. I liked less the thought of you standing alone under the tree while whispers made their small fires. I wanted a straight road between us." "It worked," I said. The road came back to the circle. I felt my voice hitch. I swallowed. "Do you still wish for vows today?" He turned his head then and met my eyes. His gaze was steady, not to burn anything, not to search, simply to rest in the truth there. "I wish for vows that have heard the bell," he said. "We can speak them when the bell says it is time. It is not far." We sat together a while longer. My mother touched my shoulder as she passed and left a small piece of sweet bread on my knee. I tore it in half and gave him some. The taste was simple and good. The drummer boys had moved to the shade and were tapping quiet patterns, teaching their hands the new rhythm of the day. I rose when the sun slipped a touch and the heat in the circle softened. I went to the water jar. The water was cool against the clay. I poured a cup and drank. I poured another and carried it to my grandmother. She took it with a small blessing that she let rest on my hair. "You walked well," she said. "You did not run. Even your heart did not make too much noise." "I wanted to run," I admitted, and looked across the square to where Akande and Kura were making their way back, ledger between them, like a book held by two students who finally learned that they must share if they are to finish the page before the sun goes down. But the beads taught me to walk, one step and then one step. "Truth is a vegetable that cooks slowly," she said. "If you turn the fire too high, you will burn the pot and the food will still be hard." I smiled. I tucked that proverb with the others she had given me since I could carry anything at all. When Akande and Kura returned, the sun had begun its gentle lean toward evening. Their faces were not bright, but they were not dark. They carried the small weight of a plan. They came to the elder and stopped. The elder listened. He nodded. He called the teacher, who brought the blue thread. The elder tied it in a simple loop around the bell's handle. It hung there, a small line of sky waiting to be used. The knot he made was neat, the kind that does not slip. "One more step," he said quietly, and his voice carried without strain to every ear. "When the sun touches the second branch, we will meet again. We will ring the bell once. Kura will say what is to be paid each market day. Akande will agree. We will bless the plan. Then," he looked at me and at Tayo, "we will do what this day woke to do. If your hearts, having walked, are still walking toward each other." I felt my heart lift and then settle like a bird landing on a familiar branch. "We will be ready," I said. "Rest," the elder repeated. "Eat, drink, tell a story to a child. One story for one child, and your day will remember it is not only about money and names." I found Sammy, the boy with the stick. He was drawing circles inside circles on the ground again, testing how many times he could go around before the line betrayed him and crossed itself. "Tell me a story," I said to him, turning the elder's advice upside down to make it more fun. He looked at me, grinned. "Once," he began, "there was a bead who got tired of being a bead. It wanted to be a bead and a drummer, so it rolled into a drum and made a sound. The drum laughed. The bead laughed. But then the drummer laughed so hard that the drum shook and the bead rolled out again. The bead became itself and was very happy, because rolling is also dancing." "That is a good story," I said. "You have saved our day from being too heavy." "Will you be married?" he asked, eyes huge, voice small. "Yes," I said. "But first we ring the blue thread." He nodded. Satisfied with this answer, as if I had told him the pattern of rain for the next month. As the second branch drew close to the sun's slow hand, the village gathered again. I smoothed my shawl. I pressed the beads once more in my palm, then let them sit open like little lakes catching late light. The air had changed. It was softer now. Even the dust felt less sharp. The bell hung with its small surprise of color. I looked up at the sycamore's leaves and sent a quiet thanks to the one who had planted it before I was even a thought. Did that person imagine a day like this? A bell with blue tied to it, a groom and a bride who had walked through a matter and come back not from war, but from a long conversation with their people? I breathed in and out. The drummers lifted their hands. The elder reached for the bell. He did not ring it yet. He looked at each of us, then at the sky, as if checking that both earth and heaven were ready to listen one more time. "Are we ready?" he asked, his voice low and kind. We were. The sun touched the second branch as if it had been made for that job alone. The shade under the sycamore grew long and gentle. People returned from their homes and shops with faces cooled by water and thought. The blue thread on the bell moved a little in the breeze, a small river of sky tied to iron. The choir women stood to one side. The drummers sat cross-legged, palms quiet. I folded my shawl closer and felt the small weight of my pouch against my hip, the beads inside resting like patient pebbles in a clear stream. Elder Musa stepped into the circle. He took the bell's rope and set it between his fingers along with the blue thread. He did not pull hard. He rang it once. The sound rose and spread and settled on our shoulders like a light cloth. When it faded, he let the thread lie against the bell's handle again. It made a soft whisper, as if threads could speak. "We are back," he said. "We have walked. We have counted. We have found what needed a name and given it one. Now we tie the knot of fairness, not to choke, but to hold." He nodded to Akandi and Kura. They came forward together. The ledger came too, cradled like a child that needed steady arms. Kura's face had the look of a man who has come up from the river carrying a heavy pot and is glad it is still full, even though his back aches from the load. Akandi's face held quiet. His hands moved with care. "Speak," the elder invited. Akande lifted the ledger and read the list in a voice that made the numbers sound like places on a map. What had been returned? What had been sold? What had been set aside? 15 kegs remain full in the shop, he said. 5 were sold. 2 sacks of salt remain. 1 was sold. 4 bolts of cloth remain. 2 were cut and sold by the measure. Kura counted coin from those sales and placed it here. He tapped the small stack of clean notes and a tied bundle of coins. "We agree he will pay the rest by a fair portion each market day. I will write the plan so both hands hold it. I will not add interest." Kura drew a breath. He looked at the circle. He looked at Tayo, then at me. "I will place the plan on my door as well," he said, "so any person may see it. They may ask me how I am doing, and I will tell them. I will bring slates and chalk to the school by first market after next." He shaped his last sentence like a promise and let it stand there, simple and full. Elder Musa nodded. "Good. A debt is a road. We do not carry it in our heads alone. We mark it so our feet can see where they are. Teacher Femi, please write the plan with clean words and lines that do not tangle." Teacher Femi stood and came to the low table set before the tree. He wrote in an even hand, what was owed, what would be paid, on which days. He left space for 2 names and a witness. When he finished, he raised the slate for all to see. Even those at the edges of the circle leaned and caught the sense of it. He then copied it onto paper from Akandi's bag and sanded the ink to make it dry and true. "Before we sign," the elder said, "we will place one more truth into the circle so the circle does not wobble." He gestured toward the lane. A man stepped from the shade. His clothes were dusty, his hair close cut, his left thumbnail with a small white scar near its bed. He held his cap in both hands as if it were proof of something and also a friend. "This is Jide," the elder said. "He drives the donkey cart." Jide's eyes moved across the ring of faces. He swallowed, then spoke. "I carried the kegs the day before last market," he said. "I met a man at the Tamarind. He wore a cap. He signed with a hand that pressed hard. He kept his head down. He took the goods to the lane behind the shops. I followed. He pointed to this door. He tilted his chin to show Kura's back door. He looked at Kura then, not accusing, not excusing. I did not feel easy, he said. I drove away quick. Today I came because the boy Sammy ran and said the elder asked. That is all, Elder Musa said. Enough to make the road straight. He turned to Kura. You have already owned this. Let us now sign so that the paper holds what the air has held. Akandi signed his name. It walked across the page steady as a man walking along the top of a broad wall, not showing off, just sure. Kura wrote his name slowly. He did not try to make it look like anyone else's name this time. He did not press too hard. He wrote like a man learning how to write again after he had run too far and come back, ready to sit and take the lesson. Teacher Femi signed as witness. Elder Musa added his mark, a clear symbol of the council, so the paper would carry not just a person, but our shared path. The elder held up the copy. This stays with the trader, he said. The other will hang on the shop door. The blue thread on the bell will stay for 3 market days. Anyone with a question may come. I will answer. If my voice grows tired, my sister here, he smiled toward my grandmother, will answer for me. She has long breath. A quiet ripple of laughter moved through us, easing the last tightness that had held. Now, he said, turning to Tayo and me, and his voice softened in a way that made the leaves seem to lean closer, we ask the question that waited all day. Do your hearts, having learned, still wish to vow? We do not step across water without looking again at the current. The current this afternoon has been strong. It did not sweep you apart. It taught you to plant your feet. Are you ready? I felt my mother's hand, again and always, light on my shoulder. I felt the small shape of my beads in my bag. I thought of the path along the river, the shade under the overhang, the faces of Aid and Kunle when the elder's voice found them. I thought of Kura's apology, which had stood without shaking. I thought of the bell with blue thread, and the way the village had answered it like a choir that knows its harmony. I looked at Tayo. He looked at me. Yes, I said. My voice was clear and low. We are ready. Yes, Tayo echoed steady. Then we will do it, the elder said. He glanced toward the choir women. They began to hum a tune I knew from when I was small, a melody my father had hummed when he walked home at dusk with his tools and a cloth on his shoulder. The drummers joined them, not loud, but with a heartbeat that sat under the song like a bench sits under a person, holding without fuss. Quiet drum heartbeat. We stepped into the center of the circle. A small table waited with cola, a calabash of palm wine, and a dish of clean water with a sprig of fresh leaves floating on its surface. The water caught the light and rested it there. It looked like calm Elder Musa took the dish. He touched 2 fingers to the water, then shook his hand so a fine spray fell on the ground near our feet. For those who sat here before us, he said. For those whose steps still sound when we sweep. He poured a little palm wine to the roots and clinked the edge of the calabash against the sycamore's bark like a greeting to an old friend. He turned back to us. Speak, he invited. Say what you can carry every day. Do not make words like a feast that you cannot cook again tomorrow. Make them like food you know how to prepare, steady, simple, nourishing. Tayo touched the cola nut and lifted his face so his words would go out and not fall back inside him. Amara, he said, and my name, even after this long day, sounded the same as when we sat on the ridge counting egrets. I will be your friend when the path is wide. I will be your friend when the path narrows. I will not hide my worries from you. I will not borrow your name for anything I cannot return. I will do my work with clean hands so our home does not carry the dust of my shortcuts. When trouble comes, because trouble comes to all houses, I will walk to the circle with you. I will be the one who rings the bell if your hand is busy. I will wait for your words to finish before I begin mine. I will plant truth even when I am tired. I will keep laughter by the door so it can find us easily. He fell quiet. His breath moved once more in his throat. He did not cry. He did not need to. His face had the calm of someone who knows the shape of his own heart and does not fear it. I touched the cola too. I placed it down. I let the hum from the choir touch my back like a shawl, and then I spoke. Tayo, I said, I will keep my eyes bright to see you as you are, not as my fear would make you or my wish would remake you. I will ask before I decide. I will not make shadows by closing curtains that should be open. I will share food with you when we have plenty and when we have little. I will speak your name in rooms where you are not, and I will not bend it. I will mend what I can mend. I will face what I cannot mend with you. I will walk when walking is needed, and I will stay when staying is needed. I will follow beads if you leave them, and I will leave beads if I must go ahead of you so you can find me. I will be your friend first, then everything else. Elder Musa nodded. Good, he said, and a single word can be like a small flame that gives heat without burning. He broke the cola and held out the pieces. We each took a small piece and tasted it. The bitterness sat on my tongue and then shifted, as truth does when it is accepted, into something that wakes the mouth and makes it ready for sweeter things. My grandmother stepped forward then with a small smile. She held a thin cord in her hand, woven from pale fibers. I carried this in case my hands were asked to help, she said to the elder. He smiled, knowing he had already asked her without words. She turned to me. Do you have your beads? I opened my bag. The pouch made a soft sound as it slid into my palm. When I poured the beads into my hand, they glowed a little with remembered light. The cracked one, the one Sammy had given me, sat on top without being told to. I felt the day again, the river's low song, the rock's cool shade, the firm ridge of the path underfoot. Let us thread them, my grandmother said. Not as an ornament only, but as a memory you can wear. She took the cord and the beads and, with fingers that had threaded so many needles and fooled so many knots, she began. People watched without speaking. Even the drummer's hands rested. Only the choir women's hum remained, a quiet river under everything. The cord moved through each bead as if it knew the way. My grandmother tied a small knot after every third bead, soft and neat. When she reached the cracked bead, she paused. We will keep this one, she said. A reminder that even a mark can teach. It will not make the bracelet weak. It will make it honest. She threaded it and finished the circle. Then she placed the bracelet in my hands. Offer it, she said simply. I turned to Tayo. When I strung these last night, I said, my voice no longer tight, I said 3 beads for truth. Today you use those beads like breadcrumbs for our day to find its way back to itself. Wear them, not as a chain, but as a small circle of what we have done together. He held out his wrist. I slipped the bracelet on. It sat there as if it had always known the way to his skin. The cracked bead rested on the top of his wrist. It caught the light and made a tiny star. The elder lifted the calabash. We each touched it with our fingertips. Then he poured a small measure into 2 cups and handed one to me, one to Tayo. We did not drink yet. He faced the circle. Listen, he said. A proverb says, truth may walk slowly, but it never grows old. We saw it today. It walked from the potter's yard to the river, from the river to the bell, from the bell to the ledger, and back to this circle. Another says, when many hands lift, the load laughs. We lifted. The load laughed a little. You heard it, he turned back to us. Drink, he said. We drank. The palm wine was sweet and sharp like a happy tear. It warmed me, but not in a way that made my head light. It warmed in the way a small fire warms hands held out on a cool evening. The elder raised his hands. You are husband and wife, he said. He did not shout. He did not need to. The words moved through us like a breeze that has traveled across water and brings that freshness with it. Soft cheer rises. The drummers lifted their hands and found a rhythm that knew how to be joyful without being noisy. Children clapped in a way that did not try to be in time. That made it better. The choir women sang words that said welcome to a house that had just been built. The welcome went out through the doors and along the path and into the fields where birds would hear it tomorrow without knowing why their wings felt lighter. My mother embraced me with both arms and then held my face between her hands as if checking that all my bones were where they should be. Your father is smiling, she said, not as a fancy. but as if her eyes could see across the small space where memory and presence touch. He will sit very straight tonight and tell stories about patience to anyone who will listen. Bissy the potter brought a small bowl, glazed the color of early rain. For your first morning, she said. It pours porridge very well and water even better. Sade pressed a little bundle into my palm, a packet of sweet spice tied with a thread. For days when the stew needs a surprise, she said. Even Ade and Kunli came, standing a foot behind Akande, their faces open, their shoulders lowered. Thank you, Ade said to me and Tayo. You taught us with your feet and not only with your mouths. Kunle tipped his soft hat. Then, as if remembering, he removed it and held it against his chest. We will not hide our errands anymore, he said. If we must carry a message like a pot, we will bring it to the table, not behind the house. Kura approached last. His steps were quiet. He stopped at a respectful distance. May I? He asked, looking at Tayo's eyes, then at mine. Yes, Tayo said. Kura bent his head. I have said the words, he said. I will say them again without tiring. If you feel anger on some days because of me, I will not tell you not to feel it. I will be here and let it pass across me like a necessary weather. When it clears, I will still be here, paying and repairing and serving. May your house be warm. If it needs oil, I will bring it and charge you a fair price. A small smile found its way to his mouth. I will bring a receipt too. I smiled back. Some smiles are not permission. They are grace. This was one of those smiles. Peace to your work, I said. Let your shelves fill in the right way. Let your door be a door again, not a shadow. After the vows and the small gifts, the elder called for food. People had cooked with hope in the morning and kept it warm with kindness in the afternoon. Bowls of jollof rice, stewed greens, roasted plantains, yam pottage set with groundnut flakes. The air filled with a deep human comfort. Plates moved hand to hand. Someone put a spoonful of rice in my palm and then laughed and gave me a plate. We ate, we drank water and a little more palm wine. The drummers built the rhythm, then softened it, then built it again. Children spun and fell and spun again. A rooster crowed as if it wanted to be the only one to announce what had already happened. Laughter. As the sun leaned further and a band of gold settled low along the tops of the grass, the elder rang the bell again. Once. The blue thread trembled. People turned. He lifted his chin. Before we close this day, he said, we will tie one bead to the thread. He looked at me. You have one to spare? I did. I touched my bracelet and felt the small, irregular place where the cracked bead rested. I found another bead in my pouch, one that had landed near the first branch of the fig tree. It was simple blue, without an eye, smooth as a clear morning. I handed it to the elder. He took a thin piece of new thread, passed it through the bead, and tied it around the blue cord already on the bell. The bead sat there, small and bright. For 3 market days, the elder said, this will hang here. Those who come to ask will see it and remember the path of today, from worry to walking, from walking to finding, from finding to speaking, from speaking to fairness. After 3 days, we will remove it. We will not forget. We will simply stop showing it to ourselves every hour. Our hearts will have learned. He let the bead strike the bell once. It made a sound so small we nearly missed it, like a bird tapping a window. That was enough. Music rose again. I stood with Tayo near the sycamore trunk. He turned his wrist so the bracelet faced me, and I saw the way the cracked bead caught the last light. He said nothing, and I said nothing. We did not need to. Words are good tools, but they are not the only ones. Later, after the first dances and the first bowls and the first blush of laughter, I slipped away for a moment to the edge of the square where the shadows gathered. The air there was cooler. The smell of basil came from a pot near a window. A moth rose and fell in front of it, tasting the evening with its wings. I breathed. My day came back to me in pieces. The mat with morning light on it, my mother's voice. My grandmother's fingers, the fig roots, the blue beads winking from dust, the watchman rock, the voices under the overhang, the sudden sight of our people arriving in a quiet flood, the ledger between 2 men, the tying of blue thread, the bell's patient ring. If you had not found the beads, I asked myself, because the question had been with me since noon, would you still be here? I think I would. We would have found another way. We are that kind of people. But the beads had made a small and bright road where the other roads were bushy and full of stories. I was grateful for them, not as a trick, but as a mercy. Sammy appeared beside me as small boys do by becoming part of the air. "Sister Amara," he said, eyes on my bracelet. "It is beautiful." "It is honest," I said. "Do you see the cracked bead?" He nodded, solemn in the way only children can be. "If I had a cracked bead," he said, "I would keep it to teach the other beads to be brave." "That is exactly what it will do," I said. "You understand much for a boy who still chases hoops." "I will be tired later," he said. "But I do not mind." I bent and touched his shoulder. "Your stick drew good circles today," I said. He grinned and ran off toward the drums. When I returned to the center, the elders stood speaking with Aid and Kunle. They were making a small plan of their own. "We will keep a book of who carries our messages," Aid said. "We will write where and when. If a man will not have his name written there, he will not carry our words." Kunle nodded, looking as if he had found a pocket in his heart where a small but important tool now lived. "Good," the elder said. "Tools make work honest, but remember, a tool is only as good as the hand that uses it. Keep your hands clean." His gaze lifted and found mine. He smiled. The evening fell soft. Stars came, a few at first, then more, like the beads had gone back to the sky to rest there. The sycamore stood still, its leaves whispering things they had told each other for years. Someone lit a lantern and hung it low on a post. It did not fight the night. It made a small pool of gold in which faces looked like the best versions of themselves. My grandmother sat near the lantern. She patted the bench beside her. I went and sat. She took my hand and turned my wrist to see the bracelet. "It suits you both," she said. "Truth always suits, even when we think it is not our color." I laughed softly. "You kept your stick close today," I said. "I did," she said. "It knows many paths." She lifted the stick and tapped it twice on the ground. "This is a day you will tell to your children. Tell it gently. Do not make anyone a villain. The story will teach without a whip." "I will." I looked toward Kura's shop. I could see the paper on his door catching lantern light like a small moon. People would go and read it. People would ask. He would answer. We had not ended him. We had opened him and let air in. That is not the same as breaking. "I am thinking of a proverb," my grandmother said. "It walks near what we did. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together." We went together. We did not run. We arrived. "We did," I said. "Thank you for threading the beads." She brushed away my thanks with 2 fingers. "My hands like to be busy," she said. "Tomorrow they will shell beans. Today they made a story into something that can be worn. Both are work." The elder rang the bell one last time, a goodbye to the sun. The blue thread moved and then lay still. People began to drift home, full and ready for rest. The drummers rolled their last pattern and tucked their drums under their arms like small children carried to bed. The choir women wrapped their shawls around their shoulders. Akande shook Kura's hand. Ade and Kunle walked with Jeed toward the lane, their conversation low and steady, like men discussing a road they will repair in the morning. Tayo came and stood in front of me. He did not need to say where he would be tonight. The day had said enough for both of us. He held out his hand. I took it. His palm felt warm, sure. We stood together a moment and looked at the bell, the thread, the bead. "Will you dance?" he asked, a smile in his voice. "Not long," I said. "Just enough." We stepped into the small circle where the last music waited. Our feet found the rhythm easily. It was not the fast step of a long celebration. It was the slow step of people who have done a good work and are ready to enjoy a little kindness before sleep. My shawl lifted, then settled. The cracked bead flashed once as my wrist turned and caught the lantern light. The air smelled of dust, wood smoke, and spice. When the last note faded, we walked together to the path that led toward our new home. The night insects had started their public speaking. A thin moon hung low. We passed the tamarind tree. The rope on its swing moved, empty, as if remembering a child's weight. We passed the lane that bent behind the shops. The paper on Kura's door stirred. I wished its strength in the small breeze. At our threshold, we stopped. We did not hurry inside. We listened for a moment to the village breathing around us. It sounded like a house that has learned where its doors are and how to use them. That made me feel safe. I set my bag on the stool by the door and reached inside. My fingers found one last bead I had not used. It was small and clear blue. I pressed it into Tayo's palm and closed his fingers over it. "For a day when we need a reminder," I said. "Keep it where your keys would be if we had keys." He laughed, a warm sound. "We have doors," he said. "And we have people." "Then we have keys," I said. We crossed the threshold. The room smelled like oil, wood, and new mat. The window let in a square of moon. We did not speak for a while. We moved like people who already know the map of a place even if they have never slept there. He set the calabash on the shelf. I hung my shawl on a peg. We sat. We breathed. If you are listening now and thinking, would I have walked to the river? Would I have followed the beads? I cannot answer for you, but I will say this. The beads were not only glass, and the bell was not only iron. They were small ways for our hands to carry love and truth without dropping them. You have such things too. They may be words. They may be friends. They may be a note on a door. They may be a grandmother's fingers. Use them. When the path splits, they will show you where the trunk is. Outside, the elder's bell slept. The blue thread hung still. Tomorrow, a child's laugh would wake it again, or a question, or the wind. That is the way of a village that trusts itself. It does not fear the sound of a bell. It knows that when truth walks into the circle, even if it walks slowly, it will not grow old. It will greet you, and you will know what to do. I touched the bracelet on Tayo's wrist one more time. The cracked bead felt smooth under my thumb. We closed our eyes. The day became night. The night held us, and it was kind.